wonderful artists. Thank you so much for coming back for another Art Life Conversations podcast. I am your host, Kelli Folsom, teacher, coach, mentor for all things related to art life, including making art and also building your art business. So today I am super excited because I have an incredibly special guest, and I'm so grateful she agreed to come on. Eliya with Data Driven Rebel. Did I get that right, Eliya?
You got it. Yep.
So Eliya, I've been working with Eliya all this year, and she is an incredible marketing strategist. She and her partner, Chrissy, who run Data Driven Rebel. And I'm just so grateful that I found her because she's been helping me so much this year with my business and with my marketing and with my messaging and communicating better, to my customers through my emails and my sales pages and all of that. So super delighted to have her here today to be able to share some wisdom with all of you and some of her skills with all of you artists who are looking to improve your connection with your audience and improve your copywriting. Probably a lot of you are not even doing any copywriting. That's okay. So we're going to get some great tips from her today. So welcome, Eliya. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kelli. I'm so excited to be here. What an amazing introduction. I feel all warm and fuzzy.
Yay. Awesome. You should feel warm and fuzzy. Yeah. And see, she's an art lover too. So I love that about her. She has art all on her walls. Right. So Eliya, tell everybody just right off the bat, like what your company is about and who you help and how you help them.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, at Data Driven Rebel, we're really committed to helping entrepreneurs take a data-driven approach to their marketing, which allows them to make much more confident decisions in their business and stop feeling like they're throwing spaghetti against the wall and wasting a lot of time on effort on stuff that does not matter in their business and is not moving the needle. So we work with a lot of entrepreneurs just like you, who are really hoping to leverage what's working and don't want to kind of be navigating in the dark around that. And then we have also a group mentorship program. It's kind of a collective between mentorship and just amazing people sharing their knowledge that helps smaller businesses become their own data-driven CMOs, leveraging all the same things that we do with our clients.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's so awesome because for most artists, we go data, run away. Yeah. So I know it's been a lifesaver for me working with you and just knowing that somebody who knows what they're looking at can make sense of all this craziness, which is digital marketing and to help me, know like, okay, here's what's working. Let's do more of that. This is not working. Let's adjust or optimize or adapt that. And you and Chrissy both are just absolutely brilliant. So, all right. So today we want to kind of talk to artists. I would say first about the importance of them, connecting with their audience through, I would say, the verbal, right? Because most artists, I know I used to be this way too. I used to think that, I'm not a writer, right? Like, I'm not a writer. That's why I became an artist. The art should speak for itself, and then whenever I looked around out there, what I saw was most artists just kind of posting their work either to their website or to social media, and then just not really saying much about anything. Just here's my painting. Here's the title, maybe the size. Most of them, don't even put the price on it. And then that's it, So what do you see as like the problem with that, with that kind of approach? And, what should artists be working on and adjusting with that?
Yeah, I think that's super common, certainly for artists, because obviously your sense of expression is through your art, or maybe not necessarily through words. We see it with business owners across all kinds of, niches or products, all kinds of things. They really struggle with this. But what we're sort of seeing overall in marketing right now is that there's a lot of people, there's a lot of noise online. There are a lot of artists out there selling their work as platforms like TikTok become more accessible. It's huge over there. And it's never been more important for people to stand out and differentiate yourself and really be unique in what you do and not be afraid to share more than just, this is my art. I had the amazing opportunity of coming into your mastermind group last week or something, and we really dove into storytelling because, in my opinion, everything has a story and nobody else can replicate your stories. Nobody else can do that. Yours are going to be completely unique to you, and they speak so much to what you believe in and who you are and what's important to you. And especially in the world of art, people are buying into that. They're buying into what you believe in and what's important to you and why they should buy your art over somebody else's art. All of that becomes just so incredibly important. And so I think it's important for artists, even if it's not your most comfortable medium, to just start to kind of play with, like, why did you paint this? What do you love about it? What do you want it to do for somebody else when they hang it on their wall? What do you hope, it imparts in their life? All of those things I think are more important now than ever. And that's certainly what we've been doing with you, Kelli, is really, you have such a really amazing, bold personality. And you have so many years of experience and history with what you do that we really want to position you as being such an authority in your space based on what you believe in and what you're doing and how you're helping people. And I think just artists in general, if we could just tap into just like a tiny bit more, even if it's just like, I loved this shade of this color. It reminded me of, this, that, or the other, adding those little kind of pieces about what makes you special or what makes your art unique is what's going to have people remember you. It's what's going to have them stop and connect with you. And that's what's going to bring them back to keep buying your work. So I'd say that's probably the number one thing that we're seeing right now, is that it's really important that people are just, authentically themselves and expressing who they are.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Yeah, because I think people, well, first of all, I guess I think, not everybody is our customer out there. Not everybody is our client. So I think it's really important for us to show up as people, because as that saying goes, people buy from those who they know, like, and trust, and I feel like they can relate to in some way. So now I know this has really been a scary piece for me over the years, as bold as people might think I am. This has been a journey. It's been a journey to be bold and to be my authentic self, So what would you say to somebody who is scared to start to express themselves in this way, and to put themselves out there? Because I know sometimes there's like this fear of like, oh, I don't want to be too public. I don't want to reveal too much personally about myself, or I'm afraid if I do that I'm going to be rejected. Obviously I know you're not a psychologist, but it's like, right. But like, I'm sure you've probably heard that a lot too. I know I've felt it over the years, and I know I've run into it a lot with the artists that I work with in the business mastermind as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like you said, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. I'm certainly not going to try to, therapize, or even if that's a word, but I'm certainly not going to try to give anybody advice in that realm. But I will say that, first of all, it is totally an inner game. Anybody who's an entrepreneur has to really deal with these things that come up, because they don't change as you grow. And every entrepreneur that I have worked with, whether they are 7-figure, 8-figure earners or beyond, whether their impact is, enormous or very small, they have these same fears. And they do it scared. They do it scared. Everybody just does it scared. But I do think that you have to kind of work within your capacity and stretch that. So I really believe that if you jump way outside of your comfort zone, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're going to end up more terrified. You're going to go contract even smaller. You're going to feel less comfortable about showing up. So I really believe in helping people stretch. Like, okay, you're not comfortable talking about your, deepest, darkest secrets. I don't blame you, but what is something you are comfortable talking about? Like I said, even if it's just like, this shade of purple reminds me of my childhood bedroom, which happens to be this shade of purple behind me in the room I'm sitting in. My childhood bedroom had that similar shade. And so I love it. It doesn't have to be something that's deep, dark, scary. Terrifying. We don't have to go there. But you do want to find what you're comfortable talking about and begin to stretch. And maybe that means for you, you just add one line of something you haven't really, talked about previously. You're just adding one little piece of something about yourself. And over time, as you practice that comfort zone does stretch. But the thing that's really important to remember is, like, you don't develop your voice by staying silent. Like, you have to begin to talk. You have to begin to put yourself out there. You have to find what you're comfortable talking about in order to grow that comfort zone. It doesn't grow if you never push it at all. So aside from getting a good therapist, doing inner game work, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I wanted to bring that up because I know that is a lot of times an objection that artists will have. It's this crazy thing, like whenever we go to the absolute extreme, it's like, no, you don't have to start. And also, you never have to share any of your like deepest personal stuff, in order to do this. Like, that is your choice. You can choose to like, it's not like, oh, I have to go out there and I have to share every childhood trauma I've ever had and every negative experience I ever had. That's not really what it's about, So then I'm curious too, like, what would the opposite of that? What would you say to to artists who feel like they don't have anything worth sharing? They don't have anything to say about, themselves as an artist or even about their art. Like, that's kind of the other objection I think that sometimes comes up for artists is like, oh, I'm boring. I just lead a normal little old me, my little old life, and I'm normal and I'm boring and I don't have anything of interest or value to share.
Yeah, we hear that a ton. And I especially hear that when we talk about sharing your stories, is people will always say, oh, I don't have a good story to tell. I just lead a really boring life. Nothing exciting happens to me. But I guarantee you that there are things that are going on in your life that are interesting if you intentionally pay attention to them. And so we talk about this a lot, about how you don't have to say something, great, big, or extravagant, but that people are actually going to resonate with the really small things that happen in your life. And that's how, as humans, we go through life. We're like, oh, I had an interesting conversation today, or, oh, something, I had a thought that wasn't something that I thought about before. And now I'm thinking about something differently. So something as simple as, I said this the other day when we were on our call, is, my dad is here. He's visiting from Canada. We haven't seen him for 2 years. I had a day that I had like 6 hours of back-to-back calls. It's a really boring day for most people. But what happened was, in the middle of the day, I walked out into the kitchen to get myself water or to get myself a straw, the drinking straw for what I was drinking. And my dad was there and made some kind of, comment. My dad's a joker, like, dad jokes. And I kind of blew air through the straw as like oh, stop it. Right. That it seems like nothing, but the fact that I could share this tiny little moment in the middle of my day with my dad was really meaningful to me, because he doesn't live here and he's not normally here. And that was something that I got to share with him. So moments like that happen all the time, all through your day. You don't have to look for, grand statements or these giant stories of something crazy happening. It doesn't have to be like that. There are things that happen throughout everybody's day that are interesting. You just have to practice looking at those moments and capturing them and saying something with them, giving them a meaning, something that was interesting or important to you. It doesn't have to be, huge. And I guarantee you that if you begin to look at like, oh, what did I do today? Or what am I going home and sharing with my partner? Or, what was tweetable throughout the day? What is something that I could say, oh, this happened and it was kind of interesting, that everybody has things to say. Everybody has important things to say. Everybody. You just have to go looking for them. And the other thing that I would say is, you actually don't get to determine whether or not your stories are important and meaningful. It's up to the people who are consuming them. So that story about, having my dad at home, there are people listening to this that are going to go, okay, so what? And that's fine. but there are other people that's going to resonate with them for some reason. But if I never share those stories, if we never put that out there, nobody ever gets to say, wow, that changed something for me. That was really beautiful for me. So we have to just reframe the way we look at value. And it's really hard when we talk about marketing, because what we hear all the time is, give value, give value, give value. And I think we have to reframe that. I've been talking about this for a while, that I really think it's important to say, yes, there are things that are going to be valuable for your entire audience, but also there are things you're going to say that are going to have different value and be weighted differently for different people. And that's really when we talk about this differentiation and making yourself unique. That's how you're going to find the people who resonate with you. Like, we can talk about all things painting all day long, and every painter on the planet will say, yeah, that's valuable. But Kelli, if you share a personal story, you're going to find the people that are going to latch onto you and go, that meant something for me. And that's where we get the audience, building the audience and getting the clients, or getting the collectors or whoever it's going to be, that love you and love what you stand for and love what you have to say and will buy your painting every single time. And that's what our goal is.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even you just sharing that little tiny snippet of that story, it's very human, it's very relatable. And I immediately feel like empathy and more connection to you as a person, and then I know, like, I'm dealing with a real person here,
Yeah.
Instead of it just being like, oh, it's just a sales page, or, you know what I mean? Like a lot of time, I think, marketing can come across, or selling maybe can come across as very impersonal. And even though we are running businesses, like if you are an artist trying to sell your art, trying to sell your classes, you're a self-employed artist, solopreneur, you are running a business, and marketing is just a must for running a business. It is one of the main pillars of, being successful in business. So, but a lot of times I think it can come across very just kind of cut and dry, or maybe kind of cold or disconnected, especially in the online space. So I love that can just humanize it, and make us feel more connected to it, in such a simple way. And I think it's really like the things you shared last week, in the business mastermind. It is a creative practice, like what you were saying. Like, if you start looking for those little moments, you're us as artists, we're probably not in the habit of like looking for them, not in the habit of capturing them, or maybe things are happening to us, but we're kind of just, keeping them for ourselves, or just letting them pass by, like, oh, this is just life, and we capture them on our paintings or in our sculptures and our art. That's the way that we have created to capture them. But I love also that we can capture them in words and share them in words to go with our paintings too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't, like we've been talking about, it doesn't have to be, some thought that is, mind breaking or mind blowing or anything like that. It can be these smaller things, and it can be as simple as looking at a piece of painting or at a painting and saying, like, why did I paint this way? What does this mean for me? And then just sharing that, some really simple things, can make a huge difference, and can totally humanize things. And, the data side of what we do, people always think, oh, well, that's so cold, and that's, it takes out the human of everything. And like you said, it becomes really scientific. Well, I mean, first of all, I don't understand the science side of it at all. That's why I have Chrissy, my business partner. But what we're actually seeing with that is, all it does is increase our ability to add human touch. We're able to just look at things and say, people resonate with this. Let's do more of this. Let's go deeper with this. And that's, the same thing with the content that you're creating or how you're talking about what you're doing. It's just adding that little tiny bit of human touch. We're just seeing from the way people are responding to things. I know for myself, when I think about buying stuff online or I'm looking for a brand, I'm looking for deeper than just how good is the product. I'm looking for, what do you stand for, and who are you, and what am I really buying into when I give you my money? It's the exact same way for people when they're searching for art. Of course, beauty is a huge part of it, but there's also, who am I really supporting here? What matters to you, and does it matter to me? That becomes incredibly important.
Yeah, because there is like so much art out there, so many artists
Exactly.
out there. And I know a lot of artists can kind of get into some scarcity mentality around that. Like, why even bother? The market's oversaturated, But what you're sharing here today is really the key to that. It's like, no, but just because there's, I won't even say it's oversaturated, because I don't believe that, but that is like an objection, an excuse, a reason that I hear often. So it's like, it doesn't matter how many artists are out there. Like, you are valuable, you are unique, you are special in your own way, just like they are. And you have an audience that finds you to be that way and wants to support you and wants to connect with you. But if you're always just staying in obscurity and just hiding away, or just being like, here's my paintings, they're going to have a very hard time, feeling that stronger connection, which just increases your chances of building a relationship with that person, and business is all about those relationships, like people are always like, oh, how do I find my ideal audience? Well, you have to put yourself out there first. So you can attract them, so they can actually find you, like you don't necessarily have to go out searching for them. In my opinion, like you just have to show up.
Absolutely.
And share. And I think this is such a huge piece. So as far as, technically speaking, how we tie this to our art whenever we're sharing our art, there was one thing that you shared on the call with us and I thought was so powerful. When you talked about tying in the 5 senses into writing about whatever that experience is, using those 5 senses to really describe everything, describe the moment, describing a specific moment. So could you kind of share
Sure.
about that?
Yeah, I talk a lot about in the storytelling process, how important those details really are, and what happens when we share, why it's so important. I'm going to get like kind of nerdy here for a second, because I do have a background in neuropsychology and the way the brain works, neurobiology. I love it. So the kind of a nerdy part of this is that the more detail that you can put into your writing, what actually happens is it lights up the imagination kind of center in the brain, and it becomes a co-creative process. So you're talking about something like a story. The more detail that you add into it, the easier it is for somebody else's imagination to create that same scene or create that whatever it is that you're talking about. And then they get hooked, right? They're like living in the world you're creating as they're consuming your story, which is incredibly powerful. And so the best way that we can do that is we can add a ton of details. And so I talk about it in the 5 senses, but I also think that, Walt Disney was the best at this when he designed his Disney parks, and he thought about everything from 10,000 feet above the park to standing in the streets, to the way that it felt when you grabbed a doorknob, when you touched a wall, when you walked on the cobblestone. And so you want to think about creating those like kind of layers of details, because it changes the context, it changes the way the story feels and sounds. And we can do that by layering all those 5 senses. What did it smell like? What did it look like? What did it sound like? What did it feel like? What did it taste like? Sometimes even that becomes really important, especially I think in art, because a lot of things can really create such a visceral impact for people. A red that tastes like a strawberry has a really different kind of connotation than a green that is like the same as mold on a carpet. Like, we're talking about 2 very different scenarios there, right? So including all of these senses in something is how we can really get someone to drop into and feel in their own body what it is that we're talking about, which is how in marketing, it's so important for not only getting someone to remember what we're talking about, but it also holds attention because we can sort of, hack their brain and get this co-creative process starting, which gets them, it's impossible for them pretty much to kind of get ripped away from that. It's a really powerful thing to be able to do. So same thing as when you talk about your art, when you talk about your stories, it's like, how can I bring this to life by thinking about it in terms of all those senses? Does it have a smell? Does it have a taste? Does it have a sound? Those things can become so powerful. Again, we're just talking about how can you become sticky in the minds of the people who are interested in buying your art or whatever it is that you do with your art. We're really talking about how can we make this sticky, and the more co-creative the process is, the stickier it becomes for people, the more alive it feels, which is so important in a digital space. If you have a website or a social presence, it's so important to make these things come alive.
That is so powerful. You said so many amazing things there, but I love that you're referring to it as a co-creative process, because I think a lot of times, I know I used to feel this way, and I know a lot of artists do, where you just feel like, oh, it's like I'm imposing myself on other people, whenever I put my work out there, and instead of, I think when we can view it as a co-creative process and even as a service, right? Yeah. Like, not only is your artwork a service, but also what you're sharing about perhaps an experience that you have that ties to that artwork. It's sharing it in the way that you just did. Like when you were describing the doorknob and the cobblestone street, like I was there, man. It's like I'm touching the doorknob. I literally feel it, whenever you were describing that, and I feel the cobblestone. And so it really is amazing, how that works, and how you literally painted a picture for me in my imagination, and you put me there in that space. And the most amazing thing about all of this to me is that artists should be the absolute best at doing this. Like, yeah. We already know how to do this. Like, you guys, you artists, you are so creative, and we feel these senses so powerfully. Maybe even, most artists are very sensitive, very empathetic, very in tune people, and we feel these things very powerfully. We're just maybe some of you are just not putting them into words. And it's as simple as that, like taking that experience you had, breaking it down into those, 5 senses, or at least 3 or 4 of them, fleshing it out, painting a picture. And I think that is a gift to people and a service to people. So we don't have to just like, I don't know, as artists, I feel like sometimes we get so, strangely enough, so boxed in. Like, this is the one thing I do. It's the only thing I do, Yeah. It's like, no, you are so creative. We're so creative as artists. And I mean, we should be even the best at doing all of this,
Yeah. Well, and I think, you make such a good point that for a lot of business owners, we have to really figure out, like, what is the story that they need to tell, in each piece of marketing they put out. It can become very like strategic and a little bit, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it loses sort of some of the art in the storytelling process, because you have to make it so almost like overly intentional. It becomes so strategic. But I think artists in particular are so beautifully positioned where, your art in and of itself tells a story, and it's right there for you to bring it to life. There's all these textures to it, which is what we're always trying to create and manufacture in stories. That's kind of a huge part of what I do, is how can we bring this thing to life? But your art is right in front of you, and it has so much depth. It has shadow, it has light, it has texture, it has all these things that can stimulate all the senses. All you have to do is just pull it out, is just talk about it, turn it from the art that it is into, words. And it doesn't have to be, all that difficult. It can just be, something that you want to invoke a smell, or something that you want to invoke a feeling in the body, warm and fuzzy, or, first thing in the morning, or the smell of coffee, right? Like all these things. It exists right in front of you. You don't have to work hard to bring those things to life, because you can do it just based on the art you already create.
Yeah. So beautiful. I love it. I love all of it. You are amazing.
Right back at you, Kelly.
And I think too, especially with selling art online, like you said, the one word texture, it's like, yes, if we can verbally talk about these things too, because it's, when you see a painting in person or a piece of art in person, it takes on a whole different sensation, because you're experiencing it in space, you're experiencing it tactily,
Yes.
Whereas there is kind of a, hurdle to leap over when it comes to promoting work online and getting people to buy work online. So I think that those kind of verbal descriptions become even more important when people can't see the work in person, right? Yeah. So I love it. Thank you so much, Eliya, for being here. Okay, so tell everybody where they can find you, and find out about you and Chrissy and Data Driven Rebel.
Yeah, so we're on most platforms as Data Driven Rebel, or our website is datadrivenrebel.com. It's in the process of rebranding now, so depending on when you're hearing this, it may or may not reflect what we're Chrissy and I, but it's there, and it's our way to kind of get in touch with us. Or then our group program, which is really set up to help entrepreneurs become their own fractional CMOs, is datadrivenrebel.com/rebellion. So the program is called The Rebellion. And you can find lots of information there about kind of how we're helping people. Or if you're interested in having us work with you one-on-one, then certainly go through the website to contact us.
Awesome. Yeah. And everybody will put those links in the show notes and description below if you're on YouTube. Thank you, Eliya, so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. It's amazing every time we get a chance to chat. I just love it. So
yeah. You're amazeballs, and you look beautiful today.
Oh, thanks. So do you.
All right. Okay. Have a great, wonderful rest of your day. And artists, I'll see you next time at the next Art Life Conversations podcast. Bye.